mix of professionals from different places. I was told that this session is going to be attended by students as well as research scholars and faculty. So I made sure that the content is easy to understand from a student perspective. Obviously, there are zones where research scholars might get some ideas or might have some questions which we could discuss. But I try to keep it very simple. And as the topic says, this is about how the digital age is impacting finance function, right? So the focus will be on finance function, the impact of the new technologies coming in. What I want to give as a caveat is I'm not a technology expert. I'm not an data analytical person. I am not a data scientist or whatever you want to call it. I am a finance professional who has exposure to these different technologies that are coming in into this digital age. So my focus will be on the impact of finance, but I'll still spend a few minutes to give a basic understanding of what these technologies. To be honest with you, some of these technologies, I also only have a basic understanding, right? I'm not a technology person at all. So let me share my screen. Can one of the organizers confirm if they're able to see it? And then I'll get started.
Yes, sir. We are able to see this.
We're able to see my screen. Fantastic. So as much as we keep using this word unprecedented times, since we have experienced Corona, I think this word has become so popular. But from a finance perspective as well, finance is going through an unprecedented wave of change. Never have we seen this amount of change in such a short span of time. And the most important thing is for us to act in this scenario and not to react. If we are late in catching up with latest technologies coming in and their utility, I think we are going to lose the race. So before I begin, let's get some clarity on some basics concepts of what digital means, right? So when we use the term digital, we are talking about the language that is being used by computer, right? We are talking about binary code. Computer at its basic level can differentiate only two values, 0 and 1, which we call the binary code, right? So that's nothing but the digital code, as we call it. The opposite of digital sometimes we hear is analog, right? Now, a couple of other terms that I want to give some clarity. We use this thing called digital preservance, right? Data can be stored digitally today. We can share or save photographs, videos, audios, chats, or pictures, or whatever in a digital environment, right? So a number of photographs can easily get scanned and stored in a computer. So digital preservance involves preserving data in a digital environment. Some of the times the mode used to save data may get outdated. So for example, digital data was shared in floppy disks and CD drives, right? But that preserved data, I don't know how much of it we can utilize today. Floppy disks almost out of question, and CD drives, not many computers have CD drives today. There are still some computers which do have. So I think the challenge with the preservance is, if the technology changes or if the format of the preserved file doesn't match with the latest format, again, we will not be able to access the data. So digital preservance is different to digitization, where we are trying to convert every file, every record, every picture or video, audio, whatever, into a digital format, which is converting everything into the binary code, 0, 1. So the advantage of digitization over digital preservance is that you will be able to access this data at any time in the future without much hassles, because in the simple binary code, and it can always be used to convert. Now, oftentimes we hear this, from many people. They say, robots are coming and they're going to take your jobs away, right? So before we answer the question, is it true that robots are going to take away our jobs? Before we even get there, I think we need to understand what industrial revolution is, right? And I'm sure some of you would have heard this term called Industrial Revolution 4. Right? Meaning that there are 4 phases of industrial revolution. We take mid-18th century. The first mechanization in industry started here. They used water and steam-based power, move away from, fully labor-oriented organizations to, semi-automated, or presence of some machines which are steam power based it in the loom industry, a little bit of automation. No more, steam-based power. We started to have electricity-driven machines. So, which means that you can achieve faster pace, which means that you can achieve significant volumes, which was not possible even with the steam-powered machines. So, I think scaling of production happened, real easy. You see an example of a line system used in one of the American companies, but the most popular one, of course, is Henry Ford's, car manufacturing, where they were able to first use, a production line concept in an electrical scenario. So that's Industrial Revolution 2, as they call it. 3 is, mid 20th century, or a little bit in the second half of the 20th century. With the advent of computers, things have changed very drastically. So there's technology, there's internet, and exchange of information has become much more easier, and automation was possible, in the industry at a much rapid pace than what we have seen in the first 2 stages. Automation here is, in the form of computers or in the form of machines being able to take some given set of instructions and operate successfully. Now, where we are right now is being called Industrial Revolution 4. Which has some of the key elements, such as interconnected networks, right? We often hear this term called blockchain, right? And then real-time data. We're not talking about closing books of accounts and waiting for the financials to be ready and then, analyze data. It's all real time. Your numbers are always there at your, fingertips. Use of AI, artificial intelligence, right? Use of machine learning, right? So when we talk about Industrial Revolution 4, it's a combination of how the cyber and physical systems work. So we're all entangled in this huge web of network now. There's satellite networks to tower networks to Wi-Fi's to mobile networks and so on and so forth. So the ease of accessing information, from different parts of the world has never been, like this ever before. So, and then we hear about cloud and cloud computing, right? Data can be stored at a much safer place than your own computers, and you can use faster computing machines. If your own computer is unable to, compute at a certain pace required, cannot handle a certain level of data required, we can always leverage cloud technologies. So Industrial Revolution 4 is primarily, from a finance perspective, real-time data, use of AI, machine learning, use of cloud, and blockchain, to the best of our abilities, in what we are calling the digital age. A couple of terms that I certainly would like to spend a minute or two on I know there's a lot being said about it, yet there seems to be some confusion. So machine learning. In the past, machines used to process information or data, or they performed certain steps based on what we have programmed them. You tell the machine perform step A, B, C, and once the transaction starts, it performs those steps and sends you the result, right? So it is human intelligence that designs the system, but machine can only follow those set of instructions. Anything out of that set of instructions obviously becomes a challenge. And every time data comes into it, it treats every data the same way, right? Whereas what happens in a machine learning scenario is machine, every transaction that it processes is going to learn out of that transaction. It uses the data coming out of that transaction to further build its ability to serve the customer in future transactions. I think the oldest of use of these, we have been experiencing it for a very long time, is um, search search engines, right? I think most of us use Google or Bing or some other search engines. If if you have ever noticed, I know most of the young people already know this. If right now in each one of our mobile phones, if we search for machine learnings, the top pages that come may not be the same, right? If we say, let's say the most challenging experience in my life, let's say in each of our computers or each of our mobile phones, different results are thrown up by our respective phones or computers. Why not the same? Because we have searched for the same item. Why it gives a different result? What's the search engine is doing? It is going back to the past of the searches that you made, right? And it is trying to bring up a result that is closer to what you might be looking at, right? My most challenging experience, for example, may be relating to how I'm running a finance organization. So since I search a lot around finance related topics, maybe when I Google search, it will throw that up. Somebody else who's fascinated to trek, right? Those who go to the Himalayas or other big mountains and they're trekking. Perhaps if they search my most challenging experience, because they are used to checking a lot of trek related videos or material, they may get results relating to trekking. So what machine is doing here is it is using the data to learn and eventually bring back that learning in transactions later, right? And there are a number of machine learning examples. We keep hearing artificial intelligence. Very simple way of understanding artificial intelligence is we are trying to make a machine do stuff that human can do using their intelligence, right? Not just running a set of processes. So how can we make machine learn on its own and be intelligent and behave like human beings, right? So the attempt there is creating artificial intelligence in the form of robots or in the form of any other machines that have an ability to not only process stuff, but also have an ability to learn and use that, in fine tuning what they're going to process down the line. A bit about blockchain. I know a lot of it is written because Bitcoin technology is driven by blockchain. So a lot of blockchain content on the web or wherever we will see as it relates to Bitcoins. Blockchain in simple context is, they're distributed, they use the word ledgers, so distributed, data sources, I would call it. So which means that different organizations or different entities who are operating with each other can have their distributed accounts open for access to each other. A very efficient use in finance organization happens in vendors and accounts payable, right? In accounts payable environment, we can always use blockchain to connect with our vendors, and if we want to raise a requisition, we can make a real-time requisition. I I make a requisition in my computer, my vendor is automatically able to see it in his computer through blockchain technology. So that's the advantage of distributing the ledgers and having the transparency to see each other's data. So all that we can do in accounts payable becomes really fast, right? Your requisitions go fast, all the other documentation needed for you to place the orders go fast. When the vendors send the products, provide the services to you, your ability to make the payments after that, happens real fast. Uh, Other places where you will see blockchain, banks use blockchains a lot. Most of the transactions that you enter in, banks use, a very good blockchain technology. Sometimes, we don't notice this. If you're booking a flight, right? You try it on Make My Trip, you try it on GoIbibo, you try it on some other site. You will tend to see that all these companies are using the same blockchain of information, and you might very well see the results being pretty similar in each one of these cases, because they might be using a common blockchain, to access information of all the customers, so on and so forth. So machine learning and blockchain, I want to make sure we understand that, because they are very key components of what we are calling Industrial Revolution 4. So we need to constantly look at how finance function, and what does it mean to us. So going back to my question, will robos change, will robos misplace us out of the job market? Will they take us out, right? This was my question. Are you getting out of the job market, right? When we think about each of the phases of industrial revolution, I'm sorry, I'm flipping back a little bit. Each phase there was some kind of mechanization, right? So if there was a loom which was operated by a human being, now there is a steam-based loom that is operating. But does that mean that people are not any longer working in making of cloth? No, they are, right? Um, when electrical machines came, the same thing happened. People said, human beings are no longer relevant. It can't be. When computers came in, a number of people said, computers are coming, you're going to lose your job. I think the same thing holds good even now. When people talk about big data, people talk about cloud computing, they talk about blockchains, they talk about machine learning, artificial intelligence. They'll say, human beings are no longer going to have jobs, right? The answer is no, right? When you think about it, in each of these three industrial revolutions as well, people perhaps might have lost jobs in the initial phases if they have not adjusted to a change. Let's take a very simple example. If I go back 30 years or maybe a little more than that, a lot of agricultural lands have been completely handled by a farmer himself. No technology, some simple tools, either for sowing or um, irrigating or whatever be the case. It's all manual. And now they use tractors and a lot of different tools. Does that mean farmers are out of the business? No. So have computers pushed people out of the business? No. Now computers are part of our lives, right? We have learned to use them better. We have learned to use them effectively. They have become part of our lives, but they are not like replaced us. So I think what robotics or any other technologies that are going to come up, I think the same thing holds good. We will have a partnership with robots, or we will have a partnership with these technologies. We work hand in hand. It's not that they're going to get us out of the business. A catch here, however, is that if we have to partner with these robots, if we have to partner with the other technologies that are available, we should have a clear understanding of the technologies. We should have a good idea of where to use them and how to use them, right? If not, there is a high likelihood of we not being relevant in the age. So let me also you may be thinking he's just making a claim. right? Robos are going to put us out of the business, right? He may be giving us a confidence, or he may be just trying to make us feel comfortable. Let me share some data that is provided by a reputed international organization. Those who are not aware, World Economic Forum is not a political organization. It is an NGO based out of Switzerland, does some wonderful work across the globe, especially as it relates to the global economies and how they are emerging and how they can help each other in the development. I want you to first focus on the bottom half of this slide. It talks about by 2022, what are the types of jobs that may not exist in the market, right? And by the way, this study is based of 2018, research that they did with 12 large economies, talking to several CXO level professionals across those 12 different countries, and arrived at this. So back to the bottom part, it says 75 million jobs would not exist. They will just go away in 2022. And what type of jobs are going away? Data entry clerks, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll checks, so on and so forth. You will see accountants and auditors. You will see client information and client service, work, business services, admin managers, so on and so forth. I'll not read through the entire stuff, but by and large, and this is where I want all the students to focus on, India had a huge advantage of getting a lot of global BPO or shared service businesses in the last 10 to 12 years, 10 to 15 years maybe, right? Uh, the big advantage we had is our computer literacy. The other big advantage we had is our ability to speak reasonably good English, right? Which most of the other countries which were competing at that time did not have the advantage. So we were able to bring these data entry jobs, the basic accounting jobs, basic processing, like, payables processing, receivables processing, managing a GL, processing some payroll transactions, so on and so forth. A number of our jobs today are based on this, right? Initially, the competition for this market used to be other countries which are catching up with this finance shared services models, right? Countries like Philippines, they made a great progress in setting up their, shared service organizations, BPOs as you call. China has some really good places like Dalian or Xinjiang, or some places where, huge finance shared services are set up. Romania in Europe, parts of, US, where there's a low cost opportunity for them to run shared services, so on and so forth. So the competition used to be other countries that could snatch this BPO market. But today, the bigger competition is not them. The bigger competition is technology. Technology is going to wipe out most of the jobs that are listed in the top 10 declining category. But amidst this disruption, I want to call this disruption, right? This is a disruption, but net positive impact can be seen, right? By 2022, as per World Economic Forum, 75 million jobs will definitely go away, but there are 133 million other jobs that are going to come into the picture, right? And what you will see here, data analysts, data scientists, right? Data scientists are people who can manage huge sets of data, run statistical tools, run algorithms on those data to derive insights or inferences from the data, right? And managing structured, unstructured, both types of data, huge volumes. We talked about AI and machine learning specialists, right? And you'll see big data specialists here. Sales and marketing might continue to emerge despite all these changes in the technology. Technology specialists, IT services, obviously, will continue to be there. Now, if you have experience of interacting with IT professionals, a number of you may have finance background and maybe in finance roles, or aspiring to be into finance roles. IT professionals will constantly say this: I need to keep learning what's new in the technology to to be relevant in the industry, right? If they are still sticking to an old technology, then they may not become relevant because that may go out of the business. I think one tip here is finance professionals, as much as we keep abreast to the latest law, we should constantly be abreast with the latest development in legal and taxation, right? In the same way, I think we have to constantly be up to speed with the technologies that are coming up in the market and how does that impact finance. This is the key thing. As we all feel that I need to continuously improve on law, improve on my taxation abilities, IFRS, US GAAP, or whatever is upcoming, we try to have a hang of it. The same way, I think you need to have a hang of various, technologies. So if jobs are changing, it automatically means that the skills required would change. It's not the same set of skills that are going to stay relevant in future. Again, I'm relying on what the World Economic Forum has, come out with. The two boxes the left hand side shows growing skills and the right hand side shows declining skills. Again, pretty much in line with what we have seen are the type of jobs that will be gone. See, I think I have put some annotations on the right side: data entry, accounting, people management, users of technology, just the basic users, they're not the programmers. So these are the type of jobs that are going. So which means skills associated to them, manual dexterity. Some people are really good at, typing skills, right? Some people are really good at their basic understanding of accounting and processing transactions. But all those jobs may not, be relevant, down the line. What are the growing skills? And this is where this is actually a beaten record. For 20 years, I have been hearing it, is build your soft skills as good as your hard skills, because they're going to make a huge difference. And I think in this technology era, in the digital era, as to speak, um, these softer skills will play a big role. And again, this is what World Economic Forum says: your analytical thinking and innovation, right? I think that plays a significant role in the future. And when we say innovation, we may be thinking of, new technologies most time, but it could be a different idea, a different way of running your business, a different way of running your operations, a different way of providing better or value added service to your clients. It's not always just the use of technology. Creativity, critical thinking, right? Problem solving skills. So these skills will have an advantage because we haven't yet reached a stage where robots can do all of this for us, right? To a certain extent, yes, they can problem solve. To a certain extent, given a set of options, they will, come with some creative ideas. But, and the hardest part is emotional intelligence, right? Um, uh, I'll spend a minute here because there are a number of students. Growing up in my college days, the biggest skill that people used to appreciate was, how quickly you learn things or how quickly you can understand something. So intelligence, IQ, as it called, intelligence quotient, right? Um, is what was more respected. But then, once you get into corporate or once you get into a work environment in different organizations, government or private, you're working with a number of people with different behaviors. And I think it's important for you to maintain a good emotional balance. I think, that's how the EQ thing has come into play. And I'll tell you one more important element down the line is how's your social quotient, how you maintain your networks, who you build your networks with are also going to play an important role. Sorry, a little bit of digression, but I thought it's relevant for the students. Now, if you're the head of a finance organization of some company, right? If you're the CFO, right? Is digital the only challenge? Although I spent so much time talking about digital or, some of the impacts of it or how we can leverage some of the technologies, but is this the only challenge? The answer is no, right? Is this the only big change that we need to focus on? No, I don't want us to get carried away thinking that if I am really good at the digital technologies, I am going to be a great CFO. No, right? You may be a good technology specialist, but I think some of the key you know things that the CFOs have to keep a tab are these five in my mind, right? uh, if we look at the future of the next 5-10 years, I think these five factors are very key. Number one is how the business models are changing today, right? And again, technology has played an important role. A number of things that we used to go buy in a brick and mortar in a store are what we are now buying through an app, right? So a simple application on your phone is able to help you do what you did spending hours together searching for the products that you need in shopping malls. You know uh, and you have to go to different locations to be able to do that. So uh, business models have been changing. 10 years ago you wouldn't imagine that McDonald's have so many chain of outlets. This concept of chain of outlets, we wouldn't even imagine that it would become such a big success. Web-based, buying and selling, or app-based or mobile phone-based buying and selling. Um, how do you go to the customer? How banks are now reaching to the customer, in a different way than several years ago. How you operate with your customer or other parts of your supply chain is totally changing. So I think keeping abreast to the different business models applicable, or what makes the most sense for your business, and how you play a strategic role as a CFO in working out the right business model uh, is the key. I think that still is the key. That still is the number one key skill set. Market volatility, we can't take away. Because we have digital doesn't mean that we can control the market volatility, although we have more and unending information due to digital in terms of market, right? Markets are pretty complex today. They are global. Different countries uh, exchange rates are playing a role. Investors coming from different places are playing a role. So and there are a lot of interconnections, right? We are currently discussing with the pandemic, is how is it going to impact India? How is it going to impact China, right? Will people go to China, or will they depend on the rest of the world for some of the services and products? If we can't import material from China, for example, from an India perspective, pharmaceutical and electronic industries significantly depend on China. What does that mean to those industries if now they cannot depend on China? So there are a lot of intricacies, right? Uh, uh, a virus has shown us to understand how some of these play, but uh, crude oil, sometimes that plays a very critical role. So a lot of there are more and more factors playing into the international and national markets. So I think from a CFO perspective, keeping a close tab of that is very important. We talked about data analytics and data sciences, use of machine learning in finance. I think that will continue to play an important role. Last but not least here is, it's important to identify the right technologies required for us, right? They may be a great technology in the market, but may not be relevant for your size of organization, for your scale of operations, for your type of business model, right? I think this is very key. You can't just use a technology because it is fancy. Let me go back a few years. Even from an ERP perspective, there are different brands in the market. We may think the best brand is such and such, and every company can pick it up. No, it may be more suitable to certain industries than others, right? Different versions of the ERP may be more suitable to some companies than the others. I think the same thing holds good in terms of technology. Can we randomly just pick up a technology and use it and say it's best for me? No. And the CFOs or the finance professionals play a very important role to say, what does it mean picking up this technology to us, right? Obviously, the study of the first three variables that I talked about is a significant study, and it's a significant effort for us to go through. From a technology perspective, I can share a very quick tip. I think I have a screenshot here. Those who like to keep abreast themselves of the latest technologies can always follow this organization called Gartner, right? Gartner, what it does is, on different category of technologies. Let's say from a finance perspective, we typically keep looking at what are the best visualization tools. What do I mean by visualization? Uh, we have data, huge lumps of data, and it's easier to present this data in some, graphs or charts and make it easy for the users to understand than presenting a ton of information in front of them. I can quickly think of coronavirus, right? There can always be a big chart that says the United States, how many cases we have, UK, Italy, Iran, India, so on and so forth, and a big table of the cases, active, deceased, total cases, or whatever statistics. Or we can simply put a global map and put darker circles in places where corona is affected more, and slightly we can use the red, amber, green sort of uh, lights to indicate, and it's a simple visual, and you can get to understand a lot. So there are number of such examples, day in day out, we can use in terms of presenting your financial information. So coming back to what this quadrant is, Gartner publishes every quarter which are the emerging technologies, which are number one, number two technologies, and they put it in a quadrant because they're saying how good they are in terms of execution, and how is their vision for the future, right? So it's a combination of that is used. You see ClickSense here, ThoughtSpot, Microsoft Tableau, so on and so forth. That's just one tip out of these 4 different elements that I talked about. So short story, are we going to get out of the business with the technologies? The answer is no. Technology is going to disrupt. Technology is going to change the way we do things, how we do and what we do, right? We have already seen that there is a net positive outlook for jobs amid the significant job disruption. We have seen that CFOs are more going to be strategists and analysts rather than being the leader of an organization which is processing a lot of information. I know we only have a few more minutes, and I want to have some time for Q&A. I think it's not only a time for us to determine what is going to be the future of digital in finance function. I think it's also time to determine, students, I'm especially talking to you, it is time to determine your future in this digital world, how it's going to impact you and what role you have to play in the digital world. Is what I want you to take away with. Those are my thoughts. Like I said, I'm not a technology expert. So I shared how my experience of operating finance teams and how does this technology impact us from my experience. Thank you so much for the time and patient listening. I'll turn it back to Panaga Madam for any questions that might have come our way.
Thank you. Sir, there have been some questions from participants asking you some promising investment options that they want to get from you, and also how long it will take for the Indian economy to revive itself.
Okay, so I saw that question. How long will it take for the Indian economy to revive after the lockdown, COVID-19? To be honest, I'm not an economist, right? I don't know how the Indian economy and the global economy are going to play a role. As I read, people are looking at it from a couple of perspectives. In an immediate short term, and I'm not talking about economy, that's not my subject, but I'm talking about, again, jobs and probably finance jobs, because that's relevant to the group that is listening. In the immediate future, we have a number of offshore jobs in India, be it technology services or BPO, including finance, right? A number of offshore. if those businesses are not doing well due to the lockdown, some of them are not doing well, in fact, right? So which means they're going to close their shops. If they do close their shops, that means they don't have an outsourcing center any longer in India or in Hyderabad, Bombay, Pune, wherever, right? So that's an immediate impact. But a flip side to the same thing is in situations like this, when there are cost pressures, when there are efficiency pressures, a lot of uh, big economies like United States or some of the European big economies like Germany or UK or others, um, Australia, when we think about East, would like to depend on a low cost, workforce that is as efficient as their own workforce. So they might want to outsource more now than before, right? In 2008, while several people have lost jobs due to the recession, there were others who got new jobs because of the increased outsourcing that happened in India. So this is one possibility. Number two that I can think of, and I don't know how long this will last. There's a huge negative view on China, right? It may just be a perception, but there is a perception, and there is a perception at a global level. This is not a few people or few political parties thinking about it. So I understand that some businesses are considering use alternative sources than China. It may last for some time, it may last forever, we do not know. But this feeling could be an opportunity for India, right? So I see those two upsides: more outsourcing opportunities for finance type roles, more opportunity for industry to grow because dependency on China, especially I can see pharma, electronics are two industries which might have a huge advantage if people want to rely on us, than China. Let me quickly look at what other questions we have. Madam, if you are able to pick up any other question, I'm happy to answer that too. I'm trying to.
That's it, sir. I think one more thing. This is an opportunity in adversity for us academicians, use of technology, because we could use so many people from so many places have been able to make use of this webinars and other things. Hope this stays because after this pandemic also. The technology.
I see one interesting question. This says, in this digital era, do we as teachers have job protection? I think absolutely yes, right? It's how you're going to use these tools to your advantage. And if you have, I have been teaching for 20 years now, right? 20 years ago, I started my career as a faculty, teaching primarily for commerce graduates, later on for professional courses. So 20 years ago, using a PowerPoint presentation was a big deal, right? Mostly PowerPoint presentations used to be the text that we wrote in a Word document. We used to print it all over the place in a PowerPoint presentation. That is all what we understood about presentation, right? So uh, did the PowerPoint get teachers out of the business? No, right? I think we started to leverage PowerPoint effectively, and started to make it. Like I said, are you going to get out of the business due to Robos? No, you're going to work hand in hand with the Robos. You work hand in hand with Microsoft tools or PowerPoint. There will be more technology, like Zoom. We are using Zoom today. Did Zoom get us out of the business? Zoom is going to create competition for teachers, right? People who wanted to sit in your classrooms already started to watch YouTube videos, right? They said all of this is available on YouTube. I'll watch it. I don't have to sit in your class. Now they also have an option to listen to anybody across the world, not just somebody in their classroom, right? They have a choice. I think that choice creates competition. So I talked about certain skills. Teaching also needs those skills, like how creative can you be in presenting your ideas to your students? How creative can you help them solve a problem? How you build their problem solving skills? How you deal with the varied styles, passions, and emotions of students today? right? 20 years ago, if a faculty is speaking, entire classroom is just listening to the faculty. They are in the room or they're not in the room, right? Now there are different people having a different pace. Certain times I get amazed. Sometimes they think at the pace they play a video game, right? They need quickly some change. They expect that the faculty also, engage them at the same pace as a video game or a movie star engages them. Reality is it's not easy, right? So somebody taught me this, like 15 years ago, whatever. If you want to be a successful faculty, understand what is the student, enjoying the most out of the learning. And he put it this way: if their favorite movie star is Amitabh Bachchan or Mahesh Babu, you have to find a way to make them feel that you are them, right? So I think it's, they have a certain expectation to feel engaged. I think we have to adjust our style to that. I haven't done a lot of it, but if I'm in a classroom, without cutting a few jokes in a 1 hour session, we cannot run a session today, right? It has to be a balance between engaging a student at the same time, passing on useful information back to them. Any other final questions before I wrap it up and hand back to Pannaka madam?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the informative session. I know Ms. Sridevi from the Department of Commerce will propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning, all. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Vijay Kiran Agasya, respected Principal, Brother Vincent Reddy, respected Vice Principal, Mrs. Jayanti Reddy ma'am, and all the participants. Give thanks for a little and you will find a lot. This is a proverb which I wanted to tell everybody. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. I, Sridevi, on behalf of Commerce Department and LFDC, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our honorable guest who blessed us with his presence and took out valuable time of his busy schedule. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation for his work and the things what all he has, the topics which he has discussed were very informative, and I think all the participants have been satisfied with whatever uh, he has discussed, and we are very happy with it, sir. And you have discussed about the blockchain, machine learning, and how robos are being misplacing the jobs nowadays towards the faculty. We are trying to do a lot of hard work, but robos are dominating our jobs. So thank you for this session, sir. I also wish to express my gratitude to our principal, vice principal for providing their encouragement and support. As no program can become successful with a single person, so I extend my big thanks to our computer department and the fraternity of LFDC. Finally, I want to thank all the participants from different parts of a country and a state and made this webinar a grand success. Thank you one and all. I want to give a small information regarding the links. Please try to follow the participants. I request all the participants to kindly give us your valuable feedback. The link will be posted in the WhatsApp group. And we are also requesting you all to collect your e-certificates through the link, which will also be provided in the WhatsApp group. Thank you one and all. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.